Oregon's biggest reason to believe it can win the national championship might not be Dante Moore, and it might not even be the absurd amount of talent on this roster, the roster that I think is the most talented in the country. It might be Chris Hampton. And in this episode of the Big Ten Huddle presented by FanDuel, I'm going to show you why. One comment from Dan Lanning after Oregon's first major fall camp scrimmage last weekend could be the most important thing we've heard out of Eugene all month. Everybody already knows Oregon is loaded. The harder question is whether this defense can become the kind of defense that steals games. And right now, there are real signs that it can be that. Oregon went through roughly 120 plays in its first major scrimmage of fall camp. Afterward, Dan Lanning talked about physicality, tackling, walking away healthy, and cleaning up ball security. I mean, the normal stuff that head coaches are going to love, and especially a head coach like Dan Lanning. But then he said something that should have gotten a lot more attention, but it didn't really, and I'm kind of questioning why it didn't. But Lanning said this is the best fall camp Oregon has had defensively when it comes to attacking the football. That is not the same thing as saying the defense won the scrimmage. He's talking about behavior, a habit, something Oregon has been emphasizing over and over again, and that's where I think that Chris Hampton part of this is fascinating. Look, Taj Lupoi did a good job at Oregon, but it's obvious things could have improved, especially in some late game situations and especially in the playoffs. Hampton is taking over as a defensive coordinator this season, and he's been on Dan Lanning's staff since 2023. So this is not some outsider where they need alignment or anything like that, ripping up the defense. He knows the system. He knows the personnel. He has coached the secondary and helped build what Oregon already has. But now he gets the coordinator role. And if Chris Hampton is actually a master defensive coordinator, not just a good position coach, not just a guy surrounded by great players, but somebody who consistently puts those players in position to create negative plays and turnovers, I think Oregon is underrated nationally. Yeah, I mean, underrated by a lot of people. Right now, FanDuel has Oregon at plus 750 to win the national championship. That is the third smallest odds in the country. And listen, I understand how ridiculous it sounds to call this team the third best national title odds team is underrated, but I truly do think Oregon has the most talented roster in college football. I think I'm about to pick them to win the Big Ten this season. Now, that's just my opinion, all right? My opinion does not control everything in college football. Kind of wish it did, but it doesn't. So if you give the most talented roster in the country an elite defensive play caller who can turn all the speed and length into takeaways, sacks, tackles for loss, and busted drives, plus 750 starts looking a whole lot more interesting if you ask me. And there is another number that matters here as well. Oregon's defensive staff has talked about wanting a Havoc rate that is above 20%. In plain English, Havoc is about destroying the offense's plan. Sacks, tackles for loss, forced fumbles, interceptions, passes disrupted, not just like getting stops, but blowing up the drive, blowing up everything that has happened to them. And that's happened to Oregon a couple times the past 2 years, and that's been a huge deterrent for them winning games, all 3 games that they've lost, I guess. But a great disruptive defense makes an offense survive chaos, and that is what Oregon appears to be chasing. The staff has been clear about the philosophy. If you are not creating those plays in practice, you cannot expect to flip the switch on Saturdays. That is why Lanning's camp comment matters. He's not just telling us, hey, we have a talented defense. Okay, great, Dan. We know. We've seen how many guys you got back. We knew that. He is telling us those talented defenders are developing the habits that Oregon wants them to have. And we saw an example in the scrimmage. We heard about an example in the scrimmage. Peyton Woodyard came away with a tip drill interception. There were balls on the ground. The defense was attacking, possession. Now, I want to be careful, but some of those turnovers were also offensive mistakes. So Lanning acknowledged that ball security has to improve, and not in practice, everything is, catch 180, because the defense did well, but then the offense didn't do well. Oh, the offense did well, and the defense didn't do well. Sometimes you just got to take what you can get and be excited about it. So I'm not going to sit here in August and pretend Oregon automatically is going to lead the country in takeaways. That'd be too much camp hype nonsense. We're not going to go there. But when your head coach says this is the best camp this defense has had attacking the football, that's worth paying attention to. Look at the front. I mean, Mateo Uyunglele, Tatum Tuioti, veteran bodies, high-end athletes, guys who can affect the quarterback without Oregon having to manufacture pressure on every single snap. And that matters because Hampton does not need to build a defense around one superstar. He can build it in waves. And that is such a great thing when your defense can do that. That's the hidden advantage a lot of times. When people talk about Oregon's talent, they normally talk about recruiting rankings like it's, some kind of trophy or something like that, right? Phil Knight comes into the conversation every single time, unfortunately, but that's what's going to get brought up. I don't care about winning signing day in August. I care about what the talent lets you do schematically in November. If Oregon can rotate pass rushers and defensive linemen, keep people fresh, cover with athletes on the back end, and still attack the ball without consistently gambling, Hampton has options. And defensive coordinators are dangerous when they have options. So here's the question that keeps coming back to me with all this, right? If this is actually going to happen, here's the question that keeps coming back to me. What happens when Oregon plays a playoff caliber offense and Dante Moore isn't perfect? Right? We saw it against Texas Tech last year, and they were fine because they had the defense that just completely suffocated Texas Tech. But you're going to face teams that are better than them, and this is going to happen with better teams. At some point, Moore is going to miss one. The offense will have a 3-and-out. Maybe it loses the field position battle. I'm not saying the entire game. I'm just talking about maybe a moment, maybe a drive or two. National championships are not won because everything goes according to plan. They're won because you have another way to win when the plan breaks. And a defense that creates turnovers is another way to win. That's why I think this development can change Oregon's ceiling. You do not need Dante Moore to throw for 350 yards every week if the defense gives him 2 short fields or something like that. You do not need the offense to be perfect in the red zone if the defense ends a drive with a sack. You do not need to win every snap if you can win the 5 snaps that completely flip possession and field position. Now, sometimes that pressure does it for you. Sometimes that can really help guys, but eventually it's going to fall flat because nobody can play perfect. When you can put it all together, that is championship football. And Chris Hampton has done this before in a different context. When he was the defensive coordinator at Tulane, sorry, I had to swallow there. When he was the defensive coordinator at Tulane, that defense made a massive jump. By 2022, Tulane had climbed 82 spots nationally in scoring defense compared to where it had been before his return. The Green Wave went 12-2 and beat USC in the Cotton Bowl. Oregon is obviously a different job. It's in the Big Ten, different conference, different expectations, different talent. But that's why I'm interested, because good defensive coordinators can work with whatever talent you give them, and they can scheme it up and put them in the best situations. Hampton does not have to, squeeze every last ounce of undermanned roster talent. He has Oregon talent. This is like I said, the most talented team, if not one of the most talented teams in the country. So what happens if the same coach who helped engineer that turnover at Tulane is now calling a defense that was already super high up there, and they just need a few minor tweaks to turn it over there? I mean, that is the butterfly effect. When Hampton is simply solid, Oregon has a very good defense, and the Ducks are one of the several championship contenders. But if he's special, if he can be special, if he's one of those coordinators who sees what an offense is trying to do and consistently gets his athletes into the right answer, then Oregon's roster becomes a different animal. Talent plus organization is good. Talent plus aggression is better. Talent plus aggression plus a coordinator who knows exactly when to unleash it, that is unstoppable. That is when quarterbacks start seeing ghosts. Sorry, I'm getting my head of myself here. And this is why I think the national title conversation around Oregon sometimes starts in the wrong place. Everybody wants to make it about Dante Moore. Can he win the Heisman? Can he win the playoff throw? That he needs to have to win the playoff game. Can he become Oregon's next great quarterback? All fair questions. Don't get me wrong. Dante Moore is a huge piece of this. All fair questions. But Oregon may not need more to become Superman. If the Ducks really are as talented as I think they are, the best thing this defense can do is lower the degree of difficulty for everybody around them. Give the offense extra possessions, create short fields, force opposing quarterbacks behind the chains, then let all those athletes hunt. Let them hunt out there. That 20% Havoc goal tells you exactly what Oregon wants to become. No passive, not bend, don't break or anything like that, but disruptive. The defense wants to dictate the game. Now they have to prove it when the season starts. Camp is camp. And quotes are quotes. We love quotes. Nobody gets a trophy for win in August, though. Nobody gets a trophy for who has the best quote about their coordinator. In the offense, putting balls on the ground is something that Oregon has to clean up, not something they should automatically get credit for on defense, but the trend is encouraging. The emphasis is encouraging. And the person now responsible for coordinating it has a track record that makes me think this might be more than just preseason noise. So here's my biggest takeaway. My biggest takeaway of it all is that Oregon's underrated. People are not giving the Ducks enough credit, and that's with them being number 2 in the AP poll, right? I think the roster is even better than that number suggests. And if Chris Hampton proves he can turn the most talented team in the college football, in my opinion, into one of the most disruptive defenses in the country, then Oregon is not just a contender. They may be the team everybody realizes too late they should have feared the most. That is what I'm watching when this season begins. Not just points allowed, not just total yards, but give me takeaways. Give me sacks. Give me tackles for loss. Give me the possession Oregon's defenses steal. Give me havoc, right? Give me the havoc rate, over 20%. Because if those start piling up, Dan Lanning's comment about being their best camp attacking the football is going to look a lot more important in December than it did in August. Hey, if you're an Oregon fan and you enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe for more Big Ten football analysis here on the Big Ten Huddle. And let me know in the comments, if Oregon wins the national championship this year, will it be because of Dante Moore or it will be because of the defense and what Chris Hampton can put together and create a monster? Thanks so much for listening and watching to the Big Ten Huddle. Join us every Sunday night at 9 p.m. here live on YouTube as we recap every single week of football, all the Big Ten teams we talk about, and then preview every single week of Big Ten football, give our predictions for every single Big Ten game. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.